Hello. Google Stick, the newest artificial intelligence tool from Google, is focused on creating graphical user interfaces, whether for web applications or mobile devices. With Google Stick, you can use an AI prompt to generate complete user interface designs for websites or mobile devices. This tool allows us to revolutionize the way we create graphical interfaces. Google Stick is a new tool, but it's based on an existing tool called Galileo AI, which has the same purpose, creating user interfaces from text prompts using artificial intelligence, allowing you to export the code in HTML, CSS, and even export the project directly into Figma. However, recently, Galileo AI was acquired by Google, and the CEO of the platform made the following announcement. I am happy to share that Galileo AI is now part of Google to continue our mission of making design easy and accessible for everyone. And today, we are excited to announce the next generation of our product, Stick, now available to everyone. So Google acquired Galileo AI, and now the tool is part of its ecosystem. Galileo AI will be discontinued on June 20th, 2025. All users must migrate their projects to Google Stick. So what can you do with Google Stick? You can generate graphical user interfaces from text prompts, design interfaces for the web and mobile devices, create and export your project to Figma so you can keep editing it in the tool, generate source code in HTML and CSS, generate user interfaces from images or sketches, build interfaces following the best UI and UX practices, create wireframes for interface prototypes, make changes to interfaces also through prompts and text, and much more. Why should you use Google Stick? The first reason is speed. It lets you cut down hours or even days of manual work when creating your designs, allowing you to do it in just a few minutes. On top of that, the designs created with the tool are professional. This means that the best practices for user interface and user experience are already applied in it. And another factor is creativity. Google Stick will help you in the creative process, letting you focus on what really makes a difference. And one last point is that projects made in Google Stick can be easily exported to Figma or to source code in HTML or CSS, so you can create, edit, delete, or change anything you want, because you're in control. Google Stick is an amazing tool and will take the process of creating user interfaces to another level. And in this course, you will learn, step by step, how to use the tool. So, I'll see you in the next lesson. Hello? In this lesson, you'll get to know a bit more about the Google Stick tool. You can access it through the website stickk.withgoogle.com. On the homepage, we have the following message: turn ideas into user interface designs for mobile and web applications. As a tool within the Google ecosystem, you can access it using your Gmail account. You can click this Try Now button and you'll be redirected to log in with your Google account. After logging in, right here on the page, we can already see a text box where we can write our prompts and also select whether we want to create a mobile or web application. Up here at the top, we have the Design Creation module. Currently, Google Stick offers two creation modes: the Standard mode and the Experimental mode. In Standard mode, you can create designs more quickly, and it uses the Gemini 2.5 Fresh Artificial Intelligence. Using this module, you'll be able to create the design and easily export it to Figma or as HTML and CSS code. Now, the Experimental mode is better suited when you have an inspirational image you want to use to start your project. Let's say you have a wireframe or even a screenshot of an interface you liked and want to create a new project based on it. In that case, it's recommended that you use the Experimental mode. This module also uses the Gemini 2.5 Pro artificial intelligence. However, there's an important detail you should pay close attention to. In experimental mode, for now, we still can't export the project to Figma. You'll only be able to export the code in HTML and CSS. If you really want to export your project to Figma, you should use the standard mode, because in experimental mode this isn't possible. But I believe it's just a matter of time, since Google will probably release the export to Figma feature in experimental mode as well. Now here on the left side of Stick, we can see the latest designs that were created and some examples that Stick provides for us. Let's check out one of them. By opening the example, we can see what prompt the user used to create this design. Create a landing page for an elite class on homemade pizza cooking. And here, right after, Stick shows that the page was generated. As we create new designs, they will appear here for us on the left side, and we can click to access them. Next, the user entered another prompt. Add a frequently asked questions section at the bottom, with operational questions such as how much does it cost, how long does the class last, etc. And then Stick lets us know here that the section was added. So this is how it works. You can start your project with a prompt, and if you need to make any changes, you can click on this text box and write a prompt requesting the modification or the addition of any element you need. After the design is generated, you'll be able to see it here in the central area, where you can give feedback on the generated design by clicking these buttons, letting them know whether it was a good result or a bad result. You can also click this edit button, which allows the open design to be included in your prompt, so the artificial intelligence knows you're really referring to this page and want to make some edits to it. By clicking on the design, this window opens and here we can easily access its code. Here, the HTML and CSS code is presented to us, and you can easily copy this code and save it in an HTML file. If you want to view the design again, just click this button. We also have the Figma option here, where it gives us a button to copy this design to Figma. And in this example, the button is disabled because this design was created using the experimental mode. In the next lesson, we will start our first interface project, where we'll explore a bit more of the features this tool offers us. You'll also learn how to write prompts to get the best results. So, I hope to see you in the next class. See you then. Hello. In this lesson, we're going to start our first project here on Google Stick. And for this project, we're going to create a landing page to sell a weight loss course. I'm going to use the standard mode here, so that after generating the project, I can export it to HTML and CSS code, and also export it to Figma. So let's select Standard Mode. Here at our prompt, let's choose that we want to create a web project. And now, yes, we need to enter our prompt. Let's start with a simple command. Create a landing page for a weight loss course with testimonials, benefits, price, and an urgent call to action. Let's click here on Generate Design and wait for the result. Since it's still an experimental tool, Google Stick may have some instability at times. So sometimes, the result can take quite a while to be generated, and there may also be some errors. Let's wait here for the result to be generated. Perfect. So I created a landing page and added some of the sections I mentioned in my prompt. Here in the section, it brought in a main banner, then success stories, the benefits you'll get, the prices for each plan, a limited time offer section, and finally, a footer section. Google Stick allows you to work with multiple screens or multiple pages at the same time. As you change your prompt, you can create new screens and edit them separately. Well, in this case, we only have one page, so we can edit it directly here in our prompt by adding new commands. In other projects in the upcoming lessons, we'll work with interfaces that have more than one page within the same project. All right, so let's make a change to this project. Let's go to our prompt, and I'll type the following command. Add a How It Works section with 3 illustrated steps and a 30-day guarantee seal. And let's send it. Now let's wait for the changes to be applied. Here it gave me a small error, saying that something didn't go as expected. This can happen because Google Stick is still an experimental tool and was launched only recently. The number of users of the tool is growing every day, so you might notice some instability during your first days using it. And here it's asking me to try again later. I'm going to send the same prompt, asking it to add one more section. And let's send it. And now, yes, design completed. So now it added, right after the main banner, this section with 3 simple steps, while keeping the content it had already created unchanged. All the images you see here in the project were generated with artificial intelligence. You can use the generated images or use your own images. But to do that, you need to make the change directly in the HTML or CSS code, or export the project to Figma and make the change there. These images are just for inspiration and to give us an idea of how our design is turning out. So let's make one more change. We can send a new prompt. I'm going to select Edit here to confirm that I want to edit this page, and I'll enter the following prompt. Add a before and after comparison with photos. And let's send it. Design finished. Now let's take a look at what it came up with. First, we noticed that it made a change to the page theme, which is now using a dark theme. We could also revert this and go back to the light theme. So let's find the new before and after section. Here at the bottom, we have the before and after. It shows some images, kind of like post ideas, sparking the user's curiosity about these people's weight loss. Pretty cool, right? In the next lesson, we'll continue editing this project. We're going to change the colors and the theme of the page. So I'll wait for you in the next class. See you then? Hello. In this lesson, you will learn how to edit the theme and the colors that are being applied to your user interface project. For this, we will use the project from the previous lesson where we created a landing page to sell a weight loss course. Editing the colors can be done easily by clicking on this tool up here. We can then edit the appearance that's being shown here, whether it will use a light theme or a dark theme. We can also choose which main color will be applied to the page. So let's make a small change to the appearance here. Let's switch to the light theme here and apply it. And now we just have to wait for the result. Perfect. It applied the light theme to the entire page here. Now let's make one more edit. Let's go back up here and now choose the main color of the page. I wanted to use this shade of blue. So let's select it and apply it to the theme. Design finished. Let's see where it applied this blue color. So we have this color applied to the buttons, and a similar shade of this color was also applied to some parts of the text, with a darker blue tone. In this tool, you can choose a predefined color, but you can also pick a custom color. We can also set its hexadecimal code, or even select the color using this tool. So let's choose a different color here and apply it. Okay, it has finished applying it, and now we have the green color applied, mainly on the buttons. We also have the text here in a slightly darker shade of green. In this tool, we could also edit the curvature of the corners of objects. We can choose here to make them more rounded or less rounded. It's also possible to choose the font used on the page. So let's change the font here as well and apply it. Done. And now we can notice the difference. The buttons, images, and our main banner now have slightly less rounded corners. And the page's font was also changed. Amazing, right? As you saw, it's really simple for us to edit the theme and also the main color of the page. Other, more specific changes really need to be made using a prompt. You should click here on Edit and specify which change you want to make. For example, applying a certain color tone to an element on the page. In the next lesson, we'll see how to generate the HTML and CSS code so you can save it as a file on your computer. So see you in the next lesson. In this lesson, you will learn how to export your project to HTML and CSS so you can edit it on your computer. The process is actually quite simple. I'm going to use the landing page project we created in the previous lesson as an example. So, to export, you just need to click on the interface you want to export. On the next screen, you'll see two buttons, Code and Figma. Let's click here on Code, and now we have access to the HTML and CSS of the page. If you want, you can switch here between the code view and the design view. So let's copy our source code by clicking this button. And here on my computer, I did the following. I created a folder to start the new project, and I'm going to open this folder in Visual Studio Code, which is a very popular IDE among developers, but you can feel free to use any IDE you like. I'll right-click on my folder and choose the option to open it with Visual Studio Code. And here in the program, we can create a new file. Let's name it index.html and press Ctrl V to paste our code. Let's save it, and now that's it. To view it, just open this file in your browser. And I'm going to use this live server feature in Visual Studio Code. And now, here we have our web page made by Google Stick. It's not responsive yet, but we can create a second screen in Google Stick, asking it to make another version for tablets or mobile devices. The images used in the project are hosted on Google servers. As we can see here in our source code, we can see the link to one of the images being used. If you really want to use this image that was generated by artificial intelligence, it's recommended that you download the image and keep it with your project files, because this image could be deleted from Google servers. As you saw, the process of exporting the HTML and CSS code from a Google Stick project is actually quite simple. In the next lesson, we'll see how to export the project into Figma. So, see you in the next lesson. Hello! In this lesson, you'll see how to export your project from Google Stick into Figma. Exporting a project to Figma means you'll have countless possibilities with your user interface project. As we know, Figma has a variety of interesting features for user interfaces. And for this lesson, I'm going to use the example from the previous lessons where we created this landing page. The first thing you need to do is open Figma and create a new design or use an existing one. I'm going to click up here on Design to start a new one. And here we have a blank project. Let's go back to Google Stick. And up here you can already see there's a button to copy to Figma. This button will copy the entire project into a frame, so you can edit it within the Figma tool. You can copy it from here by clicking this button, or by clicking on your design. You'll also see the same copy to Figma button there. Click it, and now all you have to do is simply go back to your Figma workspace, and then use the keyboard shortcut Ctrl+V, or alternatively, just right-click and choose the Paste option here. It's possible that your browser will show a message asking for permission to paste items from other locations. You just need to allow it, and then paste your design. So now, we have our landing page right here. It's fully editable with all the features that Figma offers. In some places, you might notice a few misaligned elements. But since we're in Figma, editing here is really simple. I'm going to make a quick adjustment to this title since it's out of place. And now, it's good. Let's take another look at our page. Here's another text that needs a small adjustment. Perfect. So now our landing page is finished. The coolest thing about doing this with your projects is that by exporting them into Figma, you preserve your images because the images generated by Google Stick are stored on Google's servers. And as we saw in the previous lesson about exporting the project to HTML and CSS, the images are linked to Google's servers. But when we paste the project into Figma, the images are actually copied into Figma itself. So in this case, you won't run the risk of losing those images if they get deleted from Google servers. And here, to wrap up, we can also do a preview to see how the page is turning out. Excellent. So now we have our landing page here. Put it in full screen, and now we have a landing page that can be shared with anyone. Amazing, right? In the next lesson, we'll start a new project. So, I hope to see you in the next class. See you then. Hello. Welcome to another lesson in the Google Stick course. In this lesson, we will create a user interface project for a food delivery app. Our project will include several screens, such as the login screen, main screen, restaurant menu, payment, order tracking, and also order review. We will also export this project to Figma. And to get started, make sure you are using the default mode of Google Stick here, because we need it in order to export the project to Figma. Also make sure to enable the mobile option, since we are going to develop an app for smartphones. Now we need to specify in our prompt which screens and settings we want in our app. So, we can use the following prompt. Create a food delivery app project with these screens and contents. Our first screen will be the login screen, and it should have the app logo at the top of the screen. It should also have options to log in using a cell phone number, a Google or Facebook account, a secondary button to sign up, and a food illustration at the bottom of the screen. Notice that it's important for you to specify which elements you want to have on that screen. So, you can really detail your prompt. Since Google Stick is still an experimental tool, some of these guidelines might not yet appear in the user interface. If that happens, we can edit the interface that doesn't match what we asked for and request that it adds the missing items. Now let's move on to the second screen, the main screen. This is where we'll show the list of available restaurants. So it should have a search bar pinned at the top. 3 horizontal food categories: burgers, pizza, and Japanese. Restaurant cards with a photo, name, rating, delivery time, and fee, and we'll also add a highlight for daily promotions at the top of the screen. Our third screen will be the restaurant's menu. It's also important to specify the order in which you want the items to appear. If you need to change this order, you can specify in your prompt that certain information should appear at the top, in the middle, at the bottom, or below or above an element that already exists on the page. But for this screen, I want a banner of the restaurant to appear with its photo and name, as well as some tabs with the options for best sellers, combos, and desserts. The items should appear with a small square photo, also showing their name and description, and a price button, plus a floating button with a symbol to add. The next screen will be the payment screen. It should display the order summary, including the items, subtotal, fee, and so on. An address section with a mini map, payment options like a save card, and a main button to confirm the order. And our next screen is the order tracking screen, where I'm requesting that it shows a progress circle with the stages: preparing, out for delivery, delivered, preparing, out for delivery, and delivered. The map should be simplified with a route and a quick contact option to call the person responsible for the delivery. This prompt is a way for you to organize the command you need to get to Google Stick so it understands which screens you want to create and which elements you want on each screen. Of course, you could start your project on Google Stick by creating each of these screens separately and then asking it to create the other screens afterwards. The advantage of creating multiple screens with a single prompt is that here on Google Stick they will appear side by side, but that's all. It doesn't change anything about how the design will be created or how to export the code or the project to Figma. Alright, we've defined our prompt. Now let's request the design generation here. We can already see here the processing of several screens side by side. Now we just need to wait for the interfaces to be generated. Sometimes, Google Stick might display a message here on the left side, asking you to confirm that you want to create those screens. If that happens, you need to come here to the text box and type yes to confirm, so it can start generating the user interfaces. We already have 2 interfaces finished. Let's wait for the rest to be completed. Perfect. Project completed. As I mentioned to you, we have all the user interfaces here side by side. It's interesting to work this way because it gives us a broad view of how our interface project is turning out. But that doesn't stop us from, for example, if we need another screen, I can come here to our prompt and request its creation. By coincidence, it already used red colors there. I had actually thought earlier about using the color red, since red, according to color psychology, is usually associated with food. If your project didn't end up with the color red, remember that you can come here to the color options and change the color to apply it to your project. I'm going to simulate a change here just so you can see this change happening. Let's change the color. I'll try working with an orange shade here, specifically a vibrant and warm orange hue, just as a practical example to demonstrate the process. Then, I will apply this chosen color. Perfect! The application is complete and looks exactly as intended. Done! It applied the color I selected. This was just an example. If you need to change the font, you could also edit the theme and change the font in this option. Let's go back to the red color here, which I think fits better for this type of app. Let's apply it. Okay, change completed. Here we have our interface project. When we click on the screens, you can open them to view in a larger size. And here we can close it. I really like the project. Yeah, Google Stick really followed the instructions from my prompt. Here we have the restaurant screen. With those tabs I requested for burgers, pizzas, and Japanese food. Here we have the cards, right, with the options for the available dishes. The restaurant screen. The order summary, and here the delivery tracking. Perfect. Now let's move on to the following situation. Let's say we want to add a new screen. How do we do that? Well, we can come here to our prompt and specify that we want a 6th screen. So now I want to create the following: a screen where the user can rate their order. So here in our prompt, we can enter the following: add a 6th screen to the delivery app for order rating, connected to the order tracking screen. It should include a header with a checklist icon, a title saying, "Rate your order," the restaurant's name, for example, Burger King. A main section containing a star rating from 0 to 5. An optional comment field with a placeholder saying, "What did you think of the order?" And that's it. Let's go ahead and send it. Okay, it's done. Let's first make a color change, since our project is using a theme with the color red. So let's use this tool, pick a shade of red, and apply it to the page. And now, the red color is applied. Notice that this screen doesn't appear alongside the others. That's normal, because it was generated from a new prompt. But don't worry, because the previous screens show up here on the left side in our prompt. If you need to access them, just click on any of these screens, and you'll see all of them again. Alright, now let's do the following. Export this project so it can be used in Figma. Each generated screen already has a Copy to Figma button here, so let's do that. Let's copy it, and here in Figma, let's start the new design. We just need to paste it. We can use the shortcut Control V, or we can right-click and choose the paste option here. Let's rename this screen. And now let's bring in the other screens as well. We can view them again here at the top. By clicking on any of them, we'll have access to all of them. Unfortunately, Google Stick still doesn't have an option to copy multiple screens at once, so you have to do it one by one. Let's copy the home screen. Let's also copy the second screen. Okay, I brought all the screens from Google Stick into Figma, and now we have our project ready to present. All the screens ended up with a width of 390 pixels. If you want to use a prototype to display your project in a more dynamic way, we need to select a smartphone prototype with the same width, 390 pixels. So, you can click here on an empty part of your project and then go to the prototype option. Now let's select a mobile device that has this width of 390 pixels. We can then select the iPhone 14 here, which is exactly that width. You can choose the background color of the presentation screen in this option. And now, yes, we can go ahead and do the preview. Perfect. So, here we have our user interface project for our food delivery app. This is the home page, and this is the items page. We can also scroll through the page here, the restaurant page, the order summary, the delivery status, and our review screen. Pretty cool, right? That's all for this lesson, but I hope to see you in the next one. See you then? Hello everyone, welcome to another lesson in our Google Stick course. In this lesson, we're going to create a user interface project for a news website. And at the end of the project, we'll export it to Figma. For this project, we'll use the standard mode of Google Stick, which allows us to export the project to Figma. Make sure you're also using this module. Here in our prompt, let's select the web option. Our site will have 3 pages. And just like in the previous lesson, we can use a single prompt to request all the pages we want to include in our project, and also describe which elements we want on each of those pages. So, to start, we can use the following prompt. Create a news website with these pages. First, a home page with featured articles and a grid of cards. Second, an article page with a title, image, text, author, and so on. And on the third page, there will be a categories section that can be filtered by topic. So now, let's request the design generation here. Again, when we request the creation of multiple screens in the same prompt, Google Stick will display these screens side by side. This is an interesting way for you to work. But there's nothing stopping you from requesting a new page here in our prompt if you need one. So, let's take a look at what it brought us. On the home page, we have a menu bar at the top, a search bar, and the user's avatar. Here we have a featured news story. It looks pretty interesting, but maybe we could add a few more news cards here. Now let's look at the second page. Well, on the article page, it shows the article's category, the technology section, the title, the author's name, when the article was published, a featured image, the text, and we also have the author's image and name there. I really like this design, but we can improve it a bit more. Now let's look at the next page. Okay, it shows the main news categories, some of them highlighted, and it also added a representative image. Some categories are also displayed up top as buttons. Yeah, this way of presenting it looks really cool. Let's make a few small changes. Let's start with the article page. Let's click here on Edit. Every time we click on Edit, the screen is sent here to our prompt so that Google Stick knows we're talking about this exact screen. The change I want to make is to add social media sharing buttons here in case the user wants to share this news with other people. So let's specify that here in our prompt. Add social media sharing buttons at the end of the article with icons side by side. Let's go ahead and send it. Okay, it's done. Now let's check the result. Perfect. Now, at the end of the article, we have social media icons for sharing. Since I didn't specify which social networks I wanted, right, it just brought some randomly. But we can specify that we want to use Facebook, WhatsApp, or any other social network you want. Yeah, let's make one more change to this article page. So, once again, we click here to edit, and now I want the following. At the end of the article, it should display a Read Also section where the user, after reading this news, might be interested in reading another article related to this one. So we can give it this prompt at the end of the article and include a Read Also section showing some news cards. Let's send it and see if it gives us a good result. Done. Let's take a look here at what it generated for us. Perfect. Right here after the author, we have a Read Also section with some suggested articles, so the user can also read these news stories. Let's also make a change to the homepage. Since it's not visible here, we need to go back to the beginning of our prompt and click here on the homepage. Okay, now I need to edit this homepage. So once again, we click here to edit. And now I want to make the following change. Here in this card grid, I wanted to show at least 10 other news stories that the user can also read. We can request it like this. In the card grid, include at least 10 news cards. Now just send it. Perfect. Finished. So now we have our homepage here, right, with 10 news posts that the user might be interested in, plus the main featured article. So now, let's copy this project to a Figma project. So here in Figma, let's start the new design. Go back to Google Stick. We need to copy the pages where we made those updates. Let's copy the homepage first. Copied. It might happen to you. If you're using Google Chrome, a message might pop up asking if you want to confirm that the site can copy things to your clipboard. So if that happens, just allow it so we can copy our projects from this page and add them to Figma. Let's go back to Figma, right-click, and paste here. Perfect. So now we have our homepage here. It's a good idea, right, to add a title to this layer. I'm also going to change the background color of the page so we can see the pages we're copying more clearly since they have a white background. So now let's copy the second page. It's a little further up here where we made the last changes to it. It's important that you always copy the page with the most recent changes because, for example, we made changes to the article page, adding the social media icons and this free section as well. But if we go back to the beginning, to the first prompt we ran, it's also shown here. However, it's shown with the old version without our changes. So always copy the project where that page has the most recent changes. Exactly this one. Let's copy it. And now there's just one page left. We didn't make any changes to the last page. So we can go back to the beginning of our prompt. Click here on the third page. Wait for it to load. Okay. And now let's copy it. Okay. So now we have our news website project finished and fully editable here in Figma. Remember, if you want, you can also export this project to HTML and CSS code. In the next lesson, we'll develop a user interface project in Google Stick, but this time we'll use an image as the base for the project. So that's all for this class, but I hope to see you in the next class. See you then? Hello, welcome back. In this lesson, we will use the experimental mode of Google Stick. We are going to develop a user interface for login. But this time, instead of just using the prompt, we're going to switch over to Google Stick. We'll provide an image for it to use as a reference and create the design based on that. This will be the image we use. We're going to develop this login interface. Let's attach this image to our prompt. And Google Stick needs to analyze the elements that make up this design, including the images, colors, text, and layout. The image will be used only as a reference for the project, since Google Stick still can't recreate the design with 100% accuracy based on the image we send. But even so, the result will be very close to this. So, let's get started. Here in the tool, first, let's change the mode. To try it out, this mode uses Google Gemini 2.5 Pro's artificial intelligence, and it allows you to attach image files to your prompt. Let's also select the web option here, since the design we're going to create will also be for a web page. And now, we can really get started. With these settings done, let's click this button to attach our image. So, let's select the file. If you want to use this image as well, it will be available in the resources for this lesson. Let's open it. And, even though we've attached the image, Google Stick still needs us to add a description to our prompt. Otherwise, it won't let you request the design generation. So we can write it like this. Create this login interface according to the attached image. And now let's send it. Okay, design completed. Now, we can finally analyze the result. I'll put both images side by side so we can analyze and make a comparison. Google Stick managed to capture some details well, and others not so much. It wasn't able to generate a background image, but that's just a minor detail, since we can easily make that change in the code. In the code, using HTML and CSS. The two rounded corners here on the stand. It couldn't add them, but that's also just a minor detail. The featured image placed here on the left side has a visual concept that's the same as the attached image. We have a padlock there and a person next to it. Google Stick, for now, still can't generate images with a transparent background. But, despite that, we have here a layout, a base design that we can already use and make small adjustments wherever we think it's needed. The idea behind Google Stick is also to speed up the interface development process. If we have a base model that we use as inspiration, we can do it this way. And Google Stick here did practically half the work that we would have done using only HTML and CSS, which results in an extraordinary time saving. Let's take a look at a few more details here. The forgot your password link ended up aligned to the right, which I thought was really cool. The login button was stretched out, which is also a positive thing. We also have the create an account link. And finally, regarding the colors, Google Stick tried to use the colors closest to what it identified in the image. And overall, I really like the result, because this gives us an excellent time advantage. Now, let's turn this project into an HTML file. If you're on this page, all you have to do is click anywhere on the design. Next, it will open. This window, where you can simply click this button to switch between code mode or design mode. Click this button at the top to copy all the HTML and CSS code that was generated on the page. And now, on your computer, you can create a new folder and open it in VS Code or your preferred IDE. So, let's create a new file. I'll call it index.html. Now, just paste the code and our page is ready. Let's view the result in the browser, and here we have a perfect result. Google Stick has already added animation effects. When we hover the mouse over the button and also over the links, it slightly changes the shade of the object. Just like with the text boxes, which, when clicked, show an outline, indicating that it is active. And one last thing to mention is about responsiveness. Google Stick will try to add some responsiveness to your projects, but in most cases, it's not 100% perfect and will require some manual adjustments from the developer. We can see that when we reduce the width of the page, the divs on the left and right will also shrink along with the page, but the result still isn't that great. Because we could make better use of the content layout here and maybe move this right side div to the bottom, creating a line break. But overall, the project turned out great. And Google Stick really helped save a lot of time here, with at least 50% of the work already done. Amazing, right? That's all for this lesson. I'll see you in the next class. See you then.
Hello, welcome to another lesson in our Google Stick course. In this lesson,
We are going to create this website with this amazing dashboard, featuring charts, icons, cards, a sidebar menu here on the left, with a color change when you hover the mouse, all ready for you to use in your projects. To build the dashboard, I use this image as a reference. We are going to send it through a prompt in Google Stick and ask it to create the design based on it. However, we'll need to make some adjustments by giving a few commands to Google Stick. So, let's get started. Here in the tool, first, let's switch to experimental mode so we can upload images. Next, let's choose the web option, and now we're going to attach our image file by clicking on this icon. Okay, so let's select the file. This file will also be available in the class resources. You can download it. Google Stick doesn't allow me to generate the design without providing a prompt. Even if I've attached an image and I wanted to create the design exactly as shown in the attached image, I still need to provide some kind of prompt. So, simply put, I'm just going to ask it to create the design. And now let's generate the design. While it's generating the design, I'm going to explain some important details. When we use the experimental mode, this option up here, for editing the theme, colors, and fonts, it gets disabled. We won't be able to use the theme editing controls. Any changes we need to make will have to be done through commands typed into this box. Okay, the design is finished, but there are several details we need to adjust. The first one is about the color. As you can see, the left sidebar ended up with a very light shade, and it's almost impossible to see the options that appear on this side. Another detail is also the color of this card here, which doesn't match the chart that appears at the top of it. This card should be blue, just like the others, which match the chart at the top. But despite everything, Google Stick actually managed to create a design very close to the image that was sent. So now let's make our adjustments. I'm going to click this button up here to edit. I want this design to be in dark mode, so I'm going to request that here in the prompt. Switch to dark mode, and let's send it. Done. And I really like the result. It turned out excellent. The tool really made a good contrast between a darker shade and a lighter one. It also fixed the color here on the left side menu. There are still a few more details to adjust, so let's request that as well. I'm going to click here again on Edit. This time, I wanted to use a different color from this one. Purple, which is used there, for example, on the buttons and in some other parts of the site. In short, I want to change the main color. So we'll have to specify this in the prompt. We can write the prompt like this. Change the main color to, and then we specify the hexadecimal code of the color. Notice that when we put a color code here in the prompt, we can see a sample of that color. And this is useful so we know we're working with exactly the right color we want to use. So now, we just need to send it. Okay, done. Excellent result. It replaced that purple color with this red on the buttons and in some other details of the site, but it still kept the site in dark mode. Now, one last adjustment. We need to change the background color of this card, because it doesn't match the color of the chart that appears at the top. When we look at the other cards, we notice that the background color of the card matches the color of the chart at the top on all the cards. Only this last one doesn't match. So, that's just a quick adjustment we can make here in the prompt. Again, I'm going to click here to edit. And we need to specify in a way that makes it clear I want to change the background color of this card. So let's put it like this. Change the background color of the generated revenue card to. And now I've specified a shade of blue, a little darker than the one shown here in the chart. And now let's send it. Okay. Now it's perfect. So let's create an HTML file with this project that was generated. You can click on any part of the design that was generated. And in the window that opened, let's go to this code option. At the top, we already have the button to copy all the code. Here on my computer, I'm going to create a new folder. And just like we did in previous lessons, you can open your folder in any ID you prefer. I'm going to use Visual Studio Code. I created a new file. I'm going to call it index.html. Use the Ctrl-V shortcut to paste the code, and here is our website. One small detail about this code is that it doesn't have proper indentation. Here in Visual Studio Code, you can use the shortcut Alt-Shift plus the letter F to automatically indent the code. Now it's good. Much better. So let's take a look at how it turned out in the browser. Perfect. Here in the left side menu, when we hover the mouse over the menus, it already applies a color change effect. Exactly with the main color that we changed. Down here, it left some images. And this can be easily changed in the HTML page. The result really turned out great. This dark mode made the page design look very modern and elegant. We even have the search bar here at the top. And when we click on it, the border color changes automatically. So here we have a fully editable project, created with artificial intelligence. A project that could have taken several hours to make, and now we can do it in just a few minutes using Google Stick. That's all for this lesson. I hope you enjoyed it. See you next time.